So feel like, is it Moxie? Moxie. Okay. Okay. You don't want to do this?
Sure.
Okay. We'll call the regular council meeting for the city of Nisswa to order Tuesday, April 16th, 2024. If you would all please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, the first item on our agenda is to approve our agenda. So if I could get a motion.
Mayor Ryan, we did have one item added, so if it can be approved as amended.
Yes. Oh, I didn't see the amended one. Thank you. Okay, so we need to approve the amended agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed? We have an agenda. The next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. These are matters that of just standard business. So do we have any questions about the consent calendar, or do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the consent calendar as is.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is open forum. First item on open forum is public comment. This is a chance for anyone in the audience to comment on anything that's not on the agenda. If you have something you wish to bring up on an agenda item, we'll give you time to do so at that point. Is there anyone in the public that wishes to address the council on anything? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Next item on open forum is our Mayor for a Day essay. Our Mayor for a Day is Moxie Lou Stefan. Burton. Okay. And Moxie is a student here at the Nisswa Elementary School. She won the contest. And she is going to read her essay for us. So. Huh?
Moxie Lou, would you like to go to the podium?
Like to go to the podium and do it that?
Or do you want to sit there?
She has to get her.
My big ideas. Have you ever thought about being mayor? Well, I sure have. Imagine changing your town when you're only 10, like big dreams coming true changes. So my idea is to build a Nisswa Charity Center to help the homeless. Imagine living with no money to buy food and no home. That's how sad life would be with a box and a blanket. How sad would it be to live on the streets? So that's why I came up with my big idea to build a Nisswa Charity Center for the homeless. There would be free food in a moving box with stuff for the homeless. Like in the moving box, there would be a fuzzy blankets, food, a pillow, and all the stuff you need for an everyday life. Think how happy Nisswa would be to help all those people in need. Also, think how happy people's faces would be seeing their dreams come true. That's why I hope my idea flies. Another big idea I have is to build a doggy park. Imagine sleeping in the boring house all day as a doggy. That would be not fun. That's why my big idea is to build a doggy park in Nisswa. I want to make sure all animals are having fun while kids are enjoying Nisswa. And the more fun in Nisswa, the more money to build more fun things like ramps and toy boxes for the kids and for the doggies. I should be mayor for Nisswa, even if it's just for a day, because I can make some big changes and help a lot of people and dogs.
Thank you very much.
Miss Winger.
Would you, Madam Mayor, mind having a picture taken with the three of us on the council?
No? I'm
Okay.
Okay with it?
Nancy, could you do the honors? Okay. Why don't we get up? Yeah.
You can stand right in front of this grumpy old guy behind
I'd go back a little more. A little more. Why don't you guys all step out, sorry.
We'll get it sooner or later.
Same spots, but now you're picking. Now everyone just keep smiling.
We're at a wedding.
Your mommy picture, just one. One, two. Open your eyes, mom. There you go.
Molly, thank you very, very, very much.
So Mayor Ryan, I'd like to mention that there were almost 500 essays submitted for the contest throughout the state, and Moxie Luz was in the top 25. So I
Oh.
wanted to recognize her for her great writing.
Excellent job. And you said English wasn't your strong suit. Am I embarrassing you? Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Very much, Monty.
Use the gavel.
That's because you behaved yourself. Okay, next item on our agenda is Public Works Wastewater Department Annual Presentation. Tom?
It ain't snow.
The winter that really wasn't. As you can see, this is a chart that the National Weather Service produced at the end of February. And I highlighted the Brainerd line on the bottom. And you see just how much short this winter was. Over 16 inches, short of a normal winter. Until the end of March. Another serious statistic, I guess, that we use, if you're aware of this, road restrictions, when they go off. This is a chart from the state showing when the road restrictions have gone off historically in the last 20 years. Oops. And it, as you can see, there's only 2 other times where it's gone off in April. Otherwise, they normally go off in May. One that was particularly interesting to me, I think it was, I can't read it from here, I think it was 2010. They went off May 30th. So that was a really, really late winter. So, but this gives you a pretty good idea of how unusual this was. Road restrictions coming off this early. Unfortunately, part of the reason that they went off early is most of the frost was out, and then we got that large snowstorm. So there was some plow damage with this last one. We had to plow 3 days in a row. And I wanted to talk about the right of way and responsibility for damage, if you will, when that occurs. So every year we get complaints about property damage in the right of way. This includes landscaping that's done up to the edge of the pavement. In this case, we have a fence that's pretty rotten. We didn't even touch it, but just the snow coming off the plow knocked it over. And in some cases, the wing will grab, and when it does, sometimes it really grabs. And this is, up in Wolf Chase, this was a furrow that was made. Now, these bigger ones like this usually will go back and repair them. Mostly it affects the quality of the road to the drainage, so we would fix this. For this last storm, I helped plow because we had two guys on vacation. And so the two that you see here helped with that project. They did a fantastic job. The three of us took care of the whole thing. However, our policy when it comes to the right of way and damage caused, the city does not usually repair plow damage in the right of way. And so I'd like to remind people, anything you place in the right of way, any landscaping, sprinkler heads are subject to damage, and the city will not pay to have them removed. So this is just a friendly reminder. Please think about what you place in the right of way before you do. However, with this last storm, I did get some complaints about the damage from the plow, and there was an assertion that we communicate to do this intentionally. And I want to assure that we don't have time for that. We spent in that storm, we spent 12 hours per day for 3 days plowing out the city. You'll notice this slide doesn't have a picture. It's one of the only ones that doesn't. And the reason is we didn't have time to stop and take pictures of the snowstorm, let alone talk about whose property we might damage with the plow. And this is the damage that prompted that. You can hardly see it, but if I pointed it out, it'd be just below the building that you see there. That little bit of dirt on the shoulder there prompted that kind of a response. Moving on from that, I just wanted to point the problems out with the right of way because I hear about it every year, and this year was particularly nasty, and I wanted to clear that up. So anyway, moving on from that, as far as the sewer department is concerned, last week we burned off the spray irrigation field with I should say the Nisswa Fire Department did, and I want to thank them for that. They did a fantastic job. As dry as it was, it looked like from a spectator sitting off in the distance that they had some issues with it getting into the woods, but they handled it. They had some help from the DNR, and they did a fantastic job. What it helps us with is now we were able to get in there and knock down gopher mounds. There was sticks and stuff from construction that we wanted to clean up. We make it a little easier for our farmer to come in and bale up the grass. And it keeps it down cleaner, makes it better to absorb water. My next thing I wanted to go into, you guys have been aware of some of the struggles that we've had with purchasing new equipment, in particular this one. You've heard about the Ford F-450 that we spent, 3 years trying to get? There it is. If you wanted to see what it looks like, otherwise, if you ever want to see it up close and personal, please stop out. I'm sure the guys would be happy to show it to you. But
How have the aluminum boxes and stuff been holding up? This is the second one, right?
this is
The
stainless.
stainless, but
Yep.
we purchased the last truck we got, we're able to get.
Oh,
Yep.
so like the red truck that I drive
Yeah.
has an aluminum body.
Yeah.
So far, so good.
Okay.
I can't see any evidence of weathering damage to it, so
Excellent.
far so good. What's interesting about this particular truck is the one it replaces had an all steel dump body on it and Tommy gate. And that Tommy gate in 10 years was so rusted out that it was junk. And so this one is, I believe, galvanized. So we're hoping to be able to get the 10 years out of it and still have it be in good condition when we're done. Some of the other equipment that we've talked about, this is the forestry grapple that we recently purchased. As you know, we were going to use that to help clean up right away and feed our chipper. This is the new excavator that runs that grapple. The guys have been out with it in the spray field, getting used to it a little bit. They were digging out some of the stumps that were left over from the last construction project. And they've had some work in the cemetery that they've had to do. This is the new mini loader that we got. Yesterday, it was either yesterday or today, Mike swept off the new trail. So it's a welcome addition to us and it's been helpful. We load salt sand for our trucks in the winter with it. So far, so good. We really appreciate that piece of equipment too. And lastly, the truck lift that we most recently talked about. Here you're seeing Mike getting ready to rotate tires on it. So far so good. It's a safer way for us to do some of these jobs and also quite a bit faster. So we just wanted to thank you for helping support us with that stuff. Probably the bigger issues that most everybody's aware of that we're moving into and probably more interested in are road projects. And the first one that we're looking at is a 2024 road project. This isn't certain yet, but we're hoping that we can make this happen. Because we had such a mild winter, we've noticed that we don't have as much crack filling to do or patches. And so with that money that we're not using for that, we're hoping that we can do a small paving project. The one that the staff is recommending is paving Lendy Drive and Sumac Trail. We're going to be talking about this quite a bit more in the next couple of months. We're hoping that if all goes well, we can coordinate that with the paving that's happening on 115 in the area. Moving forward into next year would be a much bigger project, the beginning of the road bond that we've all been talking about a little bit here in the last few months. The first, we had to, I should back up a minute. We had to bust this up into two different bond projects. And the reason we're doing this is some of the projects are more involved. There's more utility work that has to be done, more engineering. This first list that's going to likely happen in 2025 that you guys will be considering soon are roads that simply need to have the old pavement milled and new pavement put down. And so you can see the list there for yourself, which roads that we're considering for that.
Will Upper Roy, will that be widened?
Possibly.
Okay.
That detail hasn't been ironed out yet. If it is, it would be with the consideration of adding a bike path, possibly. The next project that we would be going into the next year, these are the roads that are a little bit more complicated. Some of them include City Hall Street in front of us. There we have new sidewalks that would need to be placed. Possibly some drainage work that has to be done. Church Street, you'll see, is on here. In that case, we're definitely considering adding a bike path to that. Some of the parking lots you see in here, the reason they're on with these roads are just the proximity, closeness to them. And then you see that we also have the roads through Grandview, and there's quite a bit of engineering work that has to be done there depending on how extensive of a project we decide to do there. There's still a lot of meetings that we need to have with Grandview and of course with the council to figure out exactly what the scope of that project is going to be, whether we have to repair sewer through there, if we're going to add water pipes, if we're going to add drainage. So that's why these projects are on here. One thing you don't see on here yet is we're considering adding a roundabout here at the end of City Hall Street and Main Street to help with traffic flow at this intersection. So that'll be another angle of this project that we're considering. So what I would say is everybody, if you have interest in this, or questions, either contact me or check out the city's website. It's updated frequently now with this. Look for invitations for public information meetings that will be coming. And hopefully over the next 3 years, we can improve quite a few of the roads in town and hopefully make quite a difference with that. Another project that we just started to work on last week, I'm working on that with planning and zoning in Bethany, is updating our GIS system. Currently, this is our graphical information system, is paper maps inside these cabinets. They're okay for their time, but you know, the thing with papers is they eventually fall apart, they get lost. You can't really carry them around with you out in the field very easily. This is what will replace that big map cabinet for the most part. We'll be able to carry it around on a tablet. As some of you are aware, if you've come in to visit me and you've wanted to look at something that we're working on, I also have a large screen TV that's roughly the size of the maps that we use, where I can show people what we're doing, what we need to do. They can ask questions. That's how we plan to handle this going forward. We're going to try to get away from as much of the paper as we can, make it easier to transport out with us into the field, be able to make changes in the field. A lot of the staff will end up with these and be able to access any of the map information we have in those cabinets wherever they are.
Is that all a cloud-based system then? Or
Yeah.
internal? Okay, that's it.
And then just for kind of close my talk, one last look at the Nisswa recycling. I'm still waiting on the sign that will tell people that it's for sure closing. It's been ordered. I hope we get it soon. However, we may not have it till just before it closes, but just to make you aware that we're ready to go with that. I've talked to all the various vendors that have bins there and they're ready to move them out on May 1st. So I want to thank you for diligently working with that. And for now, that's all I have, unless you have some questions for me.
No,
I have none.
I don't think so at this time, Tom. Thank you very much. I would just say to the public too, those listening and those here, anything to do with public works, if you have a question or you don't understand why something was done, give Tom a call. He's always there for you. He'll listen, he'll get back to you. I did receive a couple of calls about the recycling. I explained my position, why I voted the way I did. I invited the people that called me to contact each council member or to get in touch with Tom. Hey, this is what, and you know, that we could explain the whole process. Some people were still thinking we made a snap decision. Explain, we've been talking about this for a couple of years. So, all right. Thanks, Tom. Okay. Next item is report, city administrator.
Thank you, Mayor Ryan. Good evening, members of the council. My report is in your packet. Just like to highlight a couple of things. The first couple items under city project updates, as noted, the compensation study has been completed and the council will receive a presentation from our consultant, David Drown and Associates, on April 30th, following the interviews for the vacant city council position. So I look forward to sharing that information and continuing on the next steps of that project. As far as the downtown master plan, our city planner received quite a few calls and questions about the plan, just clarifying questions and trying to seek a little more detail. So that's very encouraging that there is I think a robust interest in this project and to work with the city, which is great. So I believe our plan is to bring a recommendation to the council in May for that plan to move forward. On the legislative side, I am doing my best to keep up with all of the activity that's happening around housing and the different bills that have been proposed there. The local option sales tax, there have finally been initial bills introduced in the House and the Senate. The House version did not mirror the task force recommendations as much as we would have liked to have seen, but the Senate version is pretty consistent with the task force report. So we will see what those conversations bring, and hopefully there will be some projects that ultimately won't need to seek legislative approval through a, separate legislation, that we can just have a local referendum and move forward with the sales tax if a community has one of those qualifying projects that meets that criteria. So I will keep the council informed on progress in both of those areas. And then I also included in my report just some updates from departments that have different events coming up. Planning and Zoning has their spring gathering on Friday, May 10th for lake associations. We also have an event at the Pickle for our Parks Department on May 10th that evening. And then we have a grand opening for the Gull Lake Trail on June 6th. So please mark your calendars. We'll send updates to council as well, but for the public to know that we've got some fun events coming up, and everybody is invited to attend. That is all I have, unless you have questions. Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for city administrator? Okay, thank you, Jenny. Next, city attorney,
Good evening. Nothing from here tonight.
city engineer.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I do have one item I'd like to address the council with. As you may know, Joe DeBelle has been primary representative to the city. He's recouping from some health issues. So for the last couple of months, we've been working as a team to serve the city, continue that service. I've been sitting in at the council meetings regularly. I sit with planning and zoning committee and provide city engineering support to planning and zoning. I intend to continue to do that. But with the uncertainty of the length of recovery of Joe, we'd like to introduce Bill Westerberg, who is here tonight. Our approach has always been to have a primary and secondary representative to each of our communities in the event that something like this might happen. We're hopeful that Joe can come back and will help with that transition, but we'd like to present Bill to the council tonight. He's attended the Public Works Commission meeting at the last meeting and was introduced there and been introduced to the city staff as well. So I think he's come up to speed fairly quickly on the issues that Nisswa's been discussing on public works and planning and zoning and so forth. So I think we're in a good position to make this transition and think that this is the best path forward for serving the city of Nisswa. So I'd like to introduce Bill Westerberg.
Bill, welcome aboard, sir.
Be here. Forward to be on, serving you guys. And,
Oops. Hopefully I can be like, or do what Joe has been working on and live up to his footsteps, I guess. Yeah, so it's been fun trying to get to know the city and just working on the stuff that we've been starting to go through and working with Tom on the road bonding projects. So thank you.
Very good. Well, I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. On to new business. Recommendation from the Planning Commission. Bethany.
Good evening, Mayor Ryan and City Council. The following ordinance changes are a continuation of the overall review and revision of our land use ordinance that began in 2022. As conditioned by the DNR, these revisions include the state minimums for PUDs, commercial uses, and resorts. But before Chris Pence reviews these changes with you, I would like to point out several additional changes that are being proposed. One is that we are changing the area identification sign amounts to be one per entrance or one per development instead of just one. We found that with requiring developments to have two entrances, but not allowing them to put signs in the appropriate spot was not a good idea. So we've made those recommendations as well. We also removed boarding house from the land use table. There was no reference to it anywhere else in the ordinance, and there was no definition in the back of the ordinance. We also changed the structure to structure setback from 10 feet to 0 feet in the central business district. We have a setback for the central business district of 0 feet, but then we had a structure to structure setback of 10 feet. Obviously, this doesn't make sense. I spoke with our city attorney and he recommended that we change that to 0 feet. So we did do that. Included in the packet, the very large packet, I apologize for that, is a markup copy of chapter 20 that shows what is being removed from the ordinance with the strike through and what is being added. That would be underlined. Following that is a clean copy that reflects only those portions that will be in the adopted ordinance. And next is the copy of the DNR provided with their initial review comments. The Planning Commission did recommend approval at the Tuesday, April 2nd Planning Commission meeting.
It's 400 page.
It was a lot.
600 page.
Well, good evening, Mr. Mayor and
Amendments.
members of the council. It's nice to be back. I think Mr. Mayor might be nervous with the possible competition I saw tonight up front with Moxie up there. That was very
I
impressive.
give
and
up.
I think
I
you might
can't
be in
beat
trouble. I don't know.
I-
So
Yeah.
it's a pleasure to be back before you again tonight. It's been second year now working on updating the ordinance. I think we're making some great strides and making a lot of progress getting forward. What you have before you tonight meets the standards of the DNR requirements for the shoreline rules. And so we have a compliant ordinance, which I think was our #1 goal when we started this 2 years ago. We've achieved that with this tonight. I'm going to probably, I'm sure you guys have perused and looked over the ordinance a little bit, but probably haven't read it verbatim. It's a lot to read, but I can just give you a short synopsis of really of what was changed and what we really were working on. I know Bethany gave you some specifics. But the first part we worked on was just your commercial district standards and what do you need to submit for an application. The order was just it just wasn't lined up the right way for you to, to read through it and to be able to systematically understand what do I need to submit for a complete application. So you'll see a lot in the ordinance of strikeout, and it wasn't that it was deleted. It just needed to be moved, and it just needed to be moved into a different spot so that things could go. And then there were some additions to make it flow better. So there were actually a lot of good parts of the ordinance. It didn't have to be removed. It just needed to be reorganized. And so I think there's a lot more clarity now in the ordinance as far as the commercial district standards and what you need to do to submit for a complete application. And that was more of the simpler part of it. The more complex part was clearing up the standards for what would take like a PUD, the plan unit developments. And so we've got that cleaned up in the ordinance. We meet the minimum standards set by the DNR, in the shoreline ordinance and the state rule. And I think, we'll look at it again, I think in a year and see how it worked. Right now we're just meeting the minimums. We'll see if there's ever a reason why we might want to have a little bit higher standard possibly for some of the density numbers. But right now we're just going to go with the meet the minimum standards and see how that really works out in the city. And so we've got the commercial, residential, we got the commercial, or the PUD, residential, PUD, commercial figured out. And so we got all those numbers met. And then we've also got the other PUDs for the non-shoreline part of the city where you're not, within 1,000 feet of a lake. So those are really the big changes that we have. But again, I just want to go back and reiterate that just having the DNR be able to give us that letter that says you are now have a fully compliant, shoreline ordinance. That's a big deal. And I think that's something that the city should be proud of. It's been a pleasure working with Bethany. We've got good staff and it's been made the process really good to work with. I've had a lot of back and forth with DNR about making sure we had things done right. So I've had a lot of conversation with our local DNR hydrologist, Jake Free. And then we've got some staff in St. Paul that we ran it by to make sure everybody was on the same page. And they're very pleased with what's been put for you tonight too. So unless you have any questions for me or any thoughts, I'd recommend approval as submitted.
Cool.
I have no questions.
Okay. I don't think we have any questions then at this point. I just want to say that, since being on the council, we've struggled in planning and zoning with personnel. We get personnel and then they get stolen by other people. Sourcewell. I didn't mean to say that. Poached, whichever you want, but this is something I've talked with Bethany about a number of different times when the different ordinances come up, and I think we're on the right path finally. So I'm glad to see that we actually had the right stuff in there, just not in the right spot. That's good to hear. So, And we're not gonna, I was just talking to Bethany before the meeting, just, this isn't gonna be a pass it, put it in the box and never look at it again. It's gonna be reviewed. So as questions come up, things come up, problems arise, it's can be worked on. So I'm happy to hear that. So glad to see it moving that way. So. So again, thank you for your help and thanks to the
My
staff
pleasure.
that have done a lot of work on this one. Okay, so with that, unless anyone has any questions for Bethany or for Chris, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the recommendation for Planning Commission Land Use and Development Ordinance Revisions, Chapter 20 as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much.
Mayor
Thank
Ryan,
you.
can I please have a motion to publish the summary ordinance in the paper?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Recommendation of the Parks Commission reference new park name. I've been practicing it. I'm not even gonna try and say it out of respect. Because I'm really trying to say it correctly, but I liked it.
Yes, good evening. So in your packet, you have some information and a recommendation from the Nisswa Parks Commission regarding the name for the new park that we have off of Camp Lincoln Road. We did go through a public engagement process with name suggestions and a vote. Based on some of the suggestions, there is a cultural origin, and at that point, we engaged the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe. And they have recommended, I've been working on my pronunciation as well. Not quite there yet, but Na Waiai Zaga Igani Between the Lakes Park.
I like it. So.
So the idea is that it's a bilingual name.
Mhm.
So I will make a motion that we approve the recommendation of the Parks and Rec Commission to accept the name as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Liquor, excuse me, I gotta cross it off or I'm gonna get her on. Recommendation from Liquor Committee reference spirits expansion. Brian.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. First of all, I want to just thank everybody that helped me on putting some of this information together and looking at it from different viewpoints. It was refreshing seeing viewpoints from Joe and Jesse and from some of the other people that were on the Liquor Committee. I think that's always very important to have other more voices in the planning than less. And I'd like to just give a little background for people that aren't familiar with the process. Back earlier this year, the Schaefer family came to us and they want to develop the land east of Spirits in Nisswa. So for years, we wanted to expand, but we were just, kind of waiting to see what the Schaefer family did. Some of the reasons why we wanted to expand is because we have no space in our store for backstock and storage. And there's a lot of other deficiencies that I'll get to in a minute. But back to the timeline, Schaefer's came to us earlier this year, and what they wanted to do is expand. They said, basically, right now is our time if we want to expand, because down the road, if we decide we want more space, that space maybe has been leased out to somebody else. So we took a look at it and we went back and forth. We looked at our sales from the last 10 years. We looked at the 6-year scenario, the 3-year scenario, and last year. And we just did a bunch of averages. We looked at potential new products in there and ways of making extra money above and beyond what we're doing right now. And we just looked at all those different scenarios and played it out in basically an economy that would show a 3.36% increase, one that would show a 7.33, which has been our average over the last 6 years. And some of the other things that we wanted to look at, and right now, Minnesota is one of the few states out there that has where you can buy strong beer and strong wine and liquor stores only. Now, the legislation has been toying with over the last probably 20 years in Minnesota, threatening to give that to grocery stores, convenience stores. And one of the states that most recently did that was Colorado, and we looked at and see what did that have an effect on liquor stores. So we took that into consideration. Then we also used Colorado as an example because they just passed legalized cannabis, and how was that affecting alcohol? So we had to have a lot of things, unknown situations that we had to take into consideration if they would happen or not. And the bottom line is we, as the city of Nisswa, are very fortunate to have the liquor store because for the last 20 years, it has really helped out to lower the levy, reduce the taxes for the tax citizens of Nisswa. And we want to make sure that we protect that. Now, we took a look at it and said, if we do nothing, we would protect that status probably the most. But right now, working out of the store that we're working on is very complicated for the workers. And, I mentioned we don't have storage in the back room to store our products properly. We, as workers, like to keep it as organized as possible. And if we had sufficient space to put products back there, it would take less time to put it away. And we'd be able to run our store a little more organized and efficient the way it should be. We don't have a break room for the employees. And so right now the employees come and they use the office. If I'm in doing a business deal with a supplier, if I'm on a confidential conversation with anybody, it really hinders that situation. So we would like a separate break room. It doesn't have to be fancy. It just would be nice if it was separate. And then also with the growing, changing market, consumers are really in demand of having more cold products. And if we want to stay competitive with the Brainerd Lakes area, we definitely need to add more cooler space for products so that customers would can pick them up. So we looked at all those scenarios and we came up with a recommendation of 10%, which right now we're at 6,000 square feet. And it would approximately, it's a little over that. And then we would go to approximately 660 square feet. And we feel that we would be able to manage through those situations, those difficult situations of not enough space, not a break room, not enough cooler space, and protect our future, no matter what would happen with it. If alcohol goes everywhere, we would still be at a size of a business where we would be able to thrive and continue to support the city with a decent cash flow profit. Right now, over the last, pretty much since I've been there, we've given that's been the last 9 years, given anywhere from 200,000 and this year we're going up to 245,000. So I see nowhere in the situation where we would be jeopardizing that by increasing to a modest amount of 660 square feet of a building. Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add to that?
No, I guess just something for the rest of the council in looking at all this, like Brian said, with down at the state level, one of the reasons why we have been successful is because we have a monopoly, right? And at some point, the state could potentially pull that out from underneath us. And I think the council, I would like to see maybe a couple workshops set up throughout the year to really look at what we have at the end of the day with the business. If the rules would change at the state level. We don't own the building, we don't own the stuff. I mean, really at the end of the day, we own some used shelving. And if the rules were changed, we could find ourselves in a scenario where we actually don't have a business anymore at the state level. Just the way that the city is currently set up by not owning the building, it's just a lease. If the lease would not be signed in the future for some reason, there's just a I think a lot of things that the council should maybe start to discuss at this point moving forward in looking at how to, like Brian said, better protect the long-term interest and viability of the business for the future.
Any questions from anybody else?
Brian, we have a temporary storage building out back. Now that's limited in time, correct? We can only
Yes.
keep that for so long, and I'm sure when Andy adds on to their building, they certainly don't want that there. So
Yeah. So we got that and bought it last year, and we worked with the state of Minnesota liquor control, and they gave us a temporary time to use that.
Okay.
Technically, liquor has to be stored inside the building and on the location where you have your retail outlet, and it is outside the building. We're supposed to have a fence around that. So if we do have to use it for a little bit this summer, which I'm hoping we won't, we will just put a temporary fence around it. And I've been in contact with liquor control on that, and they worked very well with us and letting us use that with this. They knew that we were in negotiations with Schaefer's on a building process, or else I think their answer would have been no, that we would not be able to have that storage unit outside. But it's literally, it is a small storage container. It's 8 by 20 feet, and just that little extra space last year took a tremendous amount of pressure off of the back room at Spirits. And one of the things in the liquor business, we have to buy product in quantity. It's not a matter of how many times you get a delivery. It's a matter of how many cases you have on each delivery. So sometimes we have to buy 25 cases of Windsor, sometimes, and every item we have in that store has a case quantity. And then it's my job to determine if it makes sense, if we can make enough money on this product by buying that quantity, and if we can turn it in a sufficient amount of time.
the other thing I was gonna ask is, if we add 10% to this, then there's gonna still, the discussion still has to take place, right? As to what's that gonna do to our lease and all that, correct? So we're not
Sure.
locked into anything here.
So
Just so we know.
what
Yeah.
we're asking the city council to is approve moving to the next step, and of letting Schaefer's know that we are interested in going a 10% increase. And that would be contingent on an acceptable lease amount from them. Obviously, if they're going to double our lease on what we're paying right now for 10% more, we would decline that. And
That's all
we-
down the road.
right.
a little
So
bit here.
I have talked with, closed converse, and kind of saw what the amount is out there that, leases are going for on existing ones and future ones. So I feel that, some of the numbers that I sent to the city council are very close, and that they would be very manageable for us to succeed and, prosper in that business with an expansion.
Does anyone else have any questions for Brian? I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendation of staff to recommend or request a 10% increase, or let them communicate with Schaefer's that we'd like to see a 10% increase. And allow them, and then have staff, and then you go to the next step with
Mhm.
that process. That's the motion.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Also think that we need to keep that on the agenda, to Joe's suggestion that we have some workshops and discuss what's the next step, where we go, et cetera. We can work that with staff and liquor committee and et cetera, so. Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Just so that if there's anyone in the public that doesn't, just to bring everyone up to speed, one levy percent is roughly $25,000. So the Spirits and the Pickle Factory, the liquor fund is currently supplying approximately 11% or 11 to 12% of our levy every year. So it's significant. So, next item is to approve the Nisswa audited financial statement that was presented at the beginning of our workshop prior to this meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the City of Nisswa audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2023, as presented earlier.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Carried. There's a request here. Can we table that since Jesse's not here? I want Jesse to present that. So we can table that until the next meeting. Motion to
I'll make a
table.
motion to table request from Councilman Zahn in reference to the employee recognition discussion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, table that. Then we received a 2025 budget meeting schedule, just laying out the dates and the timeframes for the 2025 budget discussions. Jenny, did you want to go over that, or does anyone have questions about it?
Yes, if I could, just briefly. I just wanted to start off with something for the council to review. As believe it or not, we're going to start to talk about 2025 budget sooner than later. So I wanted to kind of circle back on some of the feedback received by both council and staff about trying to consolidate and streamline the process from last year. So what I have proposed is on April 30th, as I mentioned earlier, we will have a presentation on the compensation study results. At that meeting, the council can make a decision on the recommendations you will hear, or I have included on the next line in May at the regular meeting, the council could make a decision on those recommendations for the compensation study. That is to lead into the June council meeting, which is typically the time frame where the council will hear estimated wages and benefits information for the upcoming budget. So I'd like to have the information from the compensation study to then pull into our wages and benefits so that you have something to start looking at for the budget. So I propose that a budget workshop would be scheduled prior to the June regular meeting. Then get some direction from the council. And then in July, we'll have our internal department meetings per our usual schedule. And then looking at how we pull all of that together and present something to the council in August. My thought was we could provide the council with high-level department budget information citywide. You could review that information, review the requests that are included, and at that point, request if there are any specific department budgets you would like department heads to come back in September and provide a little more detailed presentation to the council. That would be just a suggestion to hear from staff and get more clarification if there was something that you wanted to discuss in more detail. All of that is leading to September 17th at the regular council meeting where you will need to approve the preliminary levy. So looking to get direction the week before on September 10th at the latest as to what the council would like for a preliminary levy for 2025. And then we would pause until November and have another workshop. That's where we finalize all of the information, the financial activity for all of our different departments and funds throughout the year. Gets us a little bit more fine-tuned with everything and presents you a final budget and levy recommendation that then you would ultimately approve in December. We have our truth and taxation meeting scheduled on December 17th and then the regular meeting to approve the final budget and 2025 levy. So that's just a high-level overview. Certainly things can adjust as we go along, but looking for your feedback. If you like this general schedule, I can start to get things calendared and start to work on some initial worksheets and things for staff so that they have direction as well. Happy to answer questions.
Depending on how it goes, some of these meetings may or may not be necessary even.
Correct. Yes, we can always cancel.
I know for myself, and I've had discussions with the city administrator about this. And after listening to feedback from some of the staff, the council this year needs to be much more direct in what we want instead of just kind of bouncing all over the place so that staff is sitting there completely bewildered all the time. Last year, I think we kind of did that. So we need to, you know, cut down to the chase, so to speak, for staff's sake, so they know what to put together. That was a conversation the city administrator and I had many times where I think the council left staff guessing and wondering too much. And we need to trim it down so that they understand this is where we want to go. Dollar amount wise, levy amount wise, or whatever, so they have the direction they need to actually do it and not. I'm explaining that well enough or not, but the council needs to, that's my goal for this year, is to make sure that whatever where I'm at is much easier to understand. It doesn't keep changing like we did last year. So, but I don't have a problem with the schedule, the way it's presented. Joe?
Don't have any.
Okay, Mark?
Nope.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the 2025 budget meeting schedule as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Number 7, approve Sourcewell Community Match Grant application. This was the addition. This was for the police department tasers. Unless Jenny has, okay, I'll make a motion that we approve the match grant as requested by the police department.
Second.
Questions, anyone? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. No. Okay. Old business, approved community, Sourcewell, Community Impact Funds Grant application.
This was the grant we discussed last month. After receiving council feedback, I completed the application per your direction to improve the roof and the clerestory windows as we discussed. I did run the application by Sourcewell just to get their feedback. They did have one suggestion for me on question number 3, which was to provide a little more detail on the summary of our project. And so I did just add more description for what the project is specifically. I think they just wanted to hear more about the new roof and window system to address our ongoing water issues, that kind of thing. So I did make that adjustment. Otherwise, it is prepared and I can submit it should the council approve.
Have we started contacting any contractors for bids or quotes or anything yet?
No, we have not.
When will we do that?
I would do that upon receiving approval that we have received the funding. If we don't, because this will go into a lottery system, if we don't, bring this back to the council to decide if you want to continue with this project without that funding component, or if you want us to hold on that again until we decide if there's a different project we want to, you know, group this in with or something different.
Sure, that makes sense. I guess my recommendation though would be to maybe at least discuss, just knowing how busy contractors and subcontractors are in the area. And if it is something that we're going to do this year, we can't wait until the last minute to contact them either. You know, just doing something parallel.
Right, and this does run on a fiscal year basis, so funds are available July 1 through the next June, so it's not a calendar year. I don't know if you were thinking calendar year, but I know some of this is, we can't get too far down in the process until we know we have funding, but can certainly try to start looking at what that might look like, so we're a little more prepared to get those quotes.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Just knowing the work during it in the summer/fall time would be better than winter. So I would just.
Because right now this is an unbudgeted expense, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so, so we've been discussing it multiple times about, do we put it into a big bond? Do we what? We decided to do this route, which is great. That was the council. So I see what you're saying, but,
And correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not vote for this already last year to go ahead and get this done this calendar year? Okay.
it was discussed, but we never made a decision. Actually, I think we made the decision was made to,
Look into it.
look into it, but not, that was all part of the whole, do we remodel the entire city hall? Do we do different? And we decided to just do certain parts of it, the infrastructural, the stuff that like windows and stuff, looking into that, but we never,
Yeah, and I
we never
thought-
put together a funding mechanism for it. So,
Okay, yeah, I guess I would like to just see progress be made in that direction, just not kick it down the road any further.
right. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on that old business.
I'll make a motion to approve the Sourcewell Community Match Funds grant application as presented.
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. We'll go to council reports. I have, other than thanking our mayor for the day, for being here. I appreciated her being here very much. It was great. Council members, do we have anything? Go,
no,
Mark?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, the next item of business, for us is a recommendation to move to closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C, reference consideration of offer for property purchase.
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are now in closed session, so we'll give, time for,
We'll do a 5-minute recess.
what was it? Oh, sorry, Sean. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, get going and I forgot. So, last meeting we had before we're in closed session technically.
You'd have to come out of closed session.
Well, I'll make a motion to come out of closed session.
I'll second.
Okay. Last meeting, I had a meeting with Sean, the fire chief, and, oh, we're out of closed session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. We had a meeting with Sean. Sean was upset. I threw him under the bus at the last meeting, when we were discussing the grant application, and then I made my comment about following the policies for all departments, because, I apologize to Sean for that. It was not my intention to throw him under a bus or any staff member under a bus. My intention was to just remind, since there were a number of department heads here, that there were policies. So I apologize to Sean for that. It's not, it was not something looking at it from his standpoint. So, so I apologize for that, chief. And we've moved forward from here. So, it's not the intention of any council member should never throw a staff member or give them the impression that we're throwing them under a bus. So, okay, so we'll move forward from there. And I was gonna do that at open forum, but we got tied up with the mayor for the day and going down with the rest of it. So my apologies for not doing that sooner in the meeting, but, hopefully we can move forward from here. Sean and I we had a good meeting, so we'll move on from there. Chief, you bet.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a recommendation to move to closed session pursuant to Minnesota statute 13D.05 sub 3C, consideration of offer for property purchase.
second,
And actually, since we get to redo this, I'm going to add the PIDs because I forgot to give that to you before. So I'm going to read them as part of the motion.
Okay,
So PID 282-30540, 282-30538, 282-30533, 282-30532, 282-30535, 282-30531, and 282-30517. And that was a motion by Mark and second by Joe, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now in closed session. You need to